Hi, I'm Alex Roman, Executive Editor for Metro Magazine, and welcome back to METROspectives. My guests today are Dominick Olivanti, Communication Manager, and Colette Hanson, Assistant Director of Admin for Arrowhead Transit in Virginia, Minnesota. Today, they join me to discuss the challenges of providing rural services, how the agency continues to innovate to better serve its ridership, implementing new technologies to make the system easier to use, and much more. A lot of great insights in this talk. Hope you enjoy. Thanks again for joining us. Well, thanks for joining us today. How's it going, guys?
Great. It's been a great day.
Good.
We just got some fresh snow here in Minnesota.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's been a great day to stay warm. Heaters are on, bus garage doors are closed in all of our 14 garages, and the roads are a little icy, so we've had to drive a little bit slower these days, but we're staying warm up here.
Great. And so I just wanted to start there, I guess. If you can talk a little bit about Arrowhead Transit for those that aren't familiar, kind of your fleet size, service area, all that kind of information.
Certainly, yeah. Well, Arrowhead Transit is the largest rural public transportation system in the state of Minnesota. We are the second largest in the country, covering over 24,000 square miles. We operate in 10 northeastern Minnesota counties. And that 24,000 square miles, that's 7 times larger than the Twin Cities 7 county metro, which most people are familiar with and associate Minnesota with, the Minneapolis St. Paul area. And that 24,000 square miles also puts us bigger than the state of Vermont. So we are quite large when it comes to serving a very rural population up here. A lot of that encompasses the Boundary Waters Canoe area, where many travelers and tourists visit throughout the summer and winter months for ice fishing and so forth. And we touch all the way up to the Canadian border and all the way then down into the North Metro counties close to Minneapolis and St. Paul.
And so obviously, I mean, snow already. So obviously that's one issue in providing service. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you guys face, both, I guess, geographically and as a small rural provider?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is making sure that we can provide equitable transportation access to all of the 750,000 people that live within our service zone. There are main highways, obviously main thoroughfares that we travel on quite regularly that our buses are constantly serving. And we try to make sure we're hitting all of the major communities in all of our 10 counties. However, there are individuals that we encourage to age in place, to stay in their home. We want people to be able to choose where they want to live and to be able to make that choice for as long as possible. And there are individuals that live in our region that choose to live in a very remote part of the state of Minnesota. So that can lead to some inequitable transportation access. So that is a challenge that Arrowhead Transit has been trying to tackle firsthand, is how do we kind of navigate that and bring equitable transportation solutions to that population. Another challenge that we run into quite regularly is knowledge of our services. Just being a rural system, we haven't had the technological advances that our urban and metro partners have had. So when individuals do research on us or look us up, we haven't had the apps or the real time route tracking that most urban center transit systems have,
Right.
because we have most of our route deviate, and that is really hard to build into a standard route tracking system software. So with new technological advancements, we have been able to invest in what we think will be a successful transition into 2025 to tackle that and hopefully bring the system into a modern 21st century approach that'll mirror our metro counterparts. But that has been a challenge too. I think several people will go down to the Twin Cities to hop on an airplane and fly somewhere, and when they get there, there's immediately urban transit access.
Hmm.
And we try to say that we're a very similar accessible public transportation option right in their local community. But that message doesn't always ring true because of the differences in the accessibility and the resources that we have.
I just want to touch base on also that is on our transit side, but on our volunteer driving program side, one of the biggest challenges we are facing right now is trying to get volunteers to come on board
Hmm.
and join our team and help the community and help the individuals to get to and from their medical appointments. I mean, we are really struggling to bring volunteers on.
Yeah. And Colette, I mean, how many volunteers do you typically have? And can you talk a little bit about how many you're short and kind of what you're doing to kind of reach out and try to draw more people in?
In our 10 county service pre-COVID, we had 320 volunteer drivings for Arrowhead Transit. Currently, as of today's date, we have 69 to cover those 10 counties. So
Oh, wow.
we dropped. And part of the issue is the individuals that were volunteering for us are now the individuals that need our help transporting them
Yeah.
and trying to reach out to the younger generation and other individuals to come on board. It's like there are so many different opportunities to volunteer now. So trying to connect with the right person to come on board and use their own vehicle and help the community. And then there's the old gimme reimbursement rate with being taxed. So we are
Yeah.
currently working to we're we're advocating for the federal government to realize that the reimbursement rate for volunteer drivers should be at the business and not at the 14s, which it currently is.
Got you. And is that primarily how Arrowhead Transit functions, is with volunteer drivers?
For our medical rides program, it's
Gotcha.
strictly volunteers.
Okay. That's interesting. And I guess I mean is anything worked? Have you shown anything? Obviously, you're able to at least sustain the 69, right? But is there anything where you've been able to hopefully find some inroads and find some people maybe that are, that make up that 69 and could hopefully start growing it and, at least into the hundreds?
When Dominick came on board as our marketing manager, him and I sat down and we discussed what can we do in order to get volunteers to come on board. And we were making great progress when we had a transportation advocate. And then he decided that he was going to retire. And we were seeing an incline of volunteers come back on board with us. And now we have a new plan in place for 2025. Dominick and I are going to outreach and really stress the importance of how important it is to volunteer, how it helps the community, how it helps individuals stay in their homes, how, all that great stuff. And we're going to put together a plan in place and then hopefully really push it out there and get individuals back on board with us.
Yeah. And do you have a magic number you would like to get to? I mean, obviously, from 69 to 320 is asking a lot. So is there kind of a magic number somewhere in between that you would like to hit?
Right now, I would like to see about 120 for all of our areas. We
Okay.
really struggled down in the southern part in our Chisago, Isanti, Pine area. For some odd reason, we have struggled down in the southern part of our counties to bring on volunteers. We're seeing more of an incline in the northern part now again. So we will be really pushing in those areas when 2025 comes.
Gotcha. And switching gears a little bit, I know that the Arrowhead Transit service is still growing, and there was recently you guys stepped in to kind of not necessarily take over, but for lack of a better term, kind of take over services in a region. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of a little bit about the kind of the fluidity of Arrowhead Transit's services?
Yeah, sure. So earlier this summer, we were approached by the city of Hibbing. The city of Hibbing has consistently been struggling to acquire new buses into their service. They were just serving their population, which is 20,000, just under 20,000 people, located right here in the heart of our service zone. And so, of course, not directly competing or producing same routes as them. We traveled through their city. We would pick up and drop off in their city, but we weren't actually allowed to duplicate their routes, of course. And they were struggling for staff and they were struggling for new buses. So they had approached Arrowhead Transit to see if we could help, see if we could modify, and we did come up with a solution that we thought was equitable. And what it ended up turning into was us acquiring their current system and absorbing it into the Arrowhead Transit system. So that was it was an impressive feat. I enjoyed being a part of that. From the team perspective, I had the privilege of working with some pretty talented individuals on making that happen in just under a month. We were notified in late June and began the transitory process starting July 1st and finished it and began service on August 1st. Huh. So since then, I believe we started service with 4 drivers, and now we're up to a full-time staff of 14 in that city to service all of the routes that were in the service design of that community. So we're able to bring back full pre-pandemic service, which is something, like I said, that community has not seen in years. And we're able to offer full-time employment to more individuals in that community. We've created a new space over there for those drivers to make it more convenient for our buses to be located in that community. So that was a very fun challenge. The city of Hibbing was wonderful to work with. They have continuously reached out, and we still actually receive, I just received a letter last week from a citizen in the city of Hibbing writing to our team just saying, thank you, we appreciate what you're doing, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season, because of the stability and the services that they're now receiving over in that community. And we love to receive that feedback. I'm sure most of my colleagues across the country can relate to not receiving positive feedback on services 100% of the time. So to get some of that positive feedback was very encouraging. And the city of Hibbing, I must say, when we do our travel trainings over in that community, when I send my travel training team there or do them myself, when I go work with senior communities over there, when I go work with the disadvantaged communities over there, they all seem incredibly impressed with what we have to offer. And we've been able to increase our direct connections to Range Regional International Airport, which provides daily Delta connection to multiple international destinations, which just again further connects the community to additional public transportation services that they didn't originally have without Arrowhead Transit in that city. So that's been a really awesome transition for us. Mm-hmm. And it's been really instrumental in creating a more cohesive public transportation network on the Mesabi Iron Range as a whole.
Great. And you mentioned a little bit ago about kind of innovation and bringing innovation into the transit agency. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing and sort of the challenges you face in providing or in kind of attaining and then hopefully getting your ridership to utilize that technology.
Right.
Can you talk about some of that?
Right. So I guess like the biggest thing for us is every single community is completely different. We're not servicing one city like our metro counterparts are, or one major metropolitan area like our counterparts are. So each city identifies in its own unique way, and all of those citizens then identify themselves in their own unique way. So connecting the messaging to them has been an incredible challenge, trying to figure out what resonates with this audience versus this audience versus this audience. Because they're all so unique and they're all so different. So identifying those key message points when creating then now what we're going forward with these technological campaigns has been instrumental in resonating with our direct communities. So that's the technological piece that we're getting to. When we're talking about how we're going to be training these individuals on how to utilize this technology, which will be, of course, like I had previously mentioned, an app with integrated payment solutions. So you can pay and buy your tickets in there, AI-powered bus tracking and bus scheduling. So if you want to hop on the bus and, for instance, you have a bus transfer somewhere, so you need to get from one city to the next, but there is that bus transfer. It'll explain that in there and still break down the price for you and allow that in-app payment. Just make it easier and a lot more cohesive and a lot easier to understand for the end user. So a lot of these things are really good and a lot of these things are really common with our urban counterparts,
Mhm.
but connecting directly then to the community that has been so used to calling and getting a real person and having that
Right.
scheduled ride and then buying the physical ticket and getting on the bus and handing it to a bus driver. That tradition that has been created over and over and over again will be interesting to break down. I do think that our newer partnerships that we're creating with the collegiate systems up here in northeastern Minnesota, such as Minnesota North, will, since it's all kind of lining up at the same time, allow for some creativity and some flexibility with the launch of this new technology. It'll be a lot easier to connect with our younger demographic. It'll be a lot easier to just produce some simple marketing material that says, hey, we have an app, download it, and people will. And people will figure it out because they'll just monkey around in it, and it's going to be very user-friendly at the very end of it. Or they'll go to our website and see that new trip planner feature right on my homepage. And, oh, okay, I've never seen this before, and be able to play around with that too. So all of that being said, we expect that those key demographics of people that we're trying to serve more going into 2025 will have no problem with the transition. So now we're just focusing on not compromising the integrity of our current ridership base that is so traditionally used to the call-in system. And I think due to some of the transitory moves that we've made, strategic transitory moves that we've made in the last year, we've prepped our communities for an online transition very well. And I just don't think that they know that yet. We've been very sneaky with a lot of things. So we've moved a lot of our feedback forms and our contact us forms, our eSuite forms online so that individuals can connect with us right from the website. So we're forcing that traffic. We're making our ridership base connect with us via that online form. And we've seen a lot of great success with that. We've been able to connect with our community on a lot more direct and a quicker way. So that's been really nice. And it's been really nice for our drivers to push people to that so that they don't necessarily have to deal with feedback firsthand, which has been really, really nice for them. Another thing that we've done is transition we have an over 90 pass. Any individual age 90 and over can ride for free for the rest of their lives. So that pass, you apply for it online now. And we've transitioned that application online, which was a big move for us. We were wondering if that was going to be difficult and challenging, but the population that we served with that has not, I've maybe had one phone call, complaining about that process. And once we found somebody in their personal network that, a child or something, to help this individual fill out the form, it was all of a sudden very easy. And that form was filled out that same very day, and the pass was shipped out to them. So I believe that we have strategically set our communities up for a big technological transition without them actually knowing that they're prepared for it, which is exciting.
Thanks again for joining me, you guys. I have just probably a few more questions, and I guess, Colette, technology doesn't just involve innovation. Innovation doesn't just involve technology. Innovation also is kind of finding new ways to service passengers and that sort of thing. Can you talk about some of the innovation that Arrowhead Transit has kind of created in being able to service some of its passengers? Whether it's kind of first mile, last mile, or some of the deviation that the services provide.
I'm gonna say Dominick could probably explain this a lot better than me, but with Arrowhead Transit, Brandon Nurmi is our new director. We had Jack Larson, who was our director for 20 years. And then Brandon Nurmi came on, and he looked at Arrowhead Transit in a whole different perspective. And he started from the top up and working on down. So he noticed that we need to move forward with Arrowhead Transit, and the things that we are doing in-house is in turn going to change how we do things that go with our routes, go with our passengers. And that is what I basically, in my part on the transit side, is in-house, is like looking at our policies and our procedures. What can we do better? What can we do in order for our passengers to get through to us a lot quicker, to let us know what their suggestions, what their ideas are, and make sure that they are being heard and understood. Before in the day, it was like they would talk to a dispatcher, they would talk to a manager. Dominick and I have set it up where every kind of suggestion, complaint, or whatever is either handled by himself or I. We hear them, we see them, and we answer those like within 2 to 3 minutes. I think the longest time we've ever gone so far is a couple of hours, and that's because even on the weekends, one of us are keeping an eye on those things to let individuals know we are listening to you and we are hearing you. And I think that has come a long way for Arrowhead Transit. And it's those little things inside where you start little and you can make those big changes. And that's what I am seeing at Arrowhead. It's like start with we can't build Rome in one day. And
Right.
so we decided that, hey, we are going to look at our structure inside first, from there, make some changes, create new positions, new staff. Like one of the things we realized we need a travel trainer. In the past, we have never had a travel trainer. We've had advocates for the volunteer driving program, but not an actual travel trainer for the transit side, where that individual is going to go out and teach individuals what we do. How do you call for a bus? What do you do if you have to change buses? So there's big ideas that we want to go forward. It's like just getting those building blocks in place. And right now, I think we are on a good start of moving forward, and everybody will start seeing a change at Arrowhead, which they have already, but I think that's where to start on my position. Now, Dominick, he's out there in the community talking. So if you want to touch base on anything else, Dominick.
Yeah, certainly. I think the biggest word that comes to mind when it comes to innovation of the company as a whole is transparency, ensuring that we are being 100% transparent and thorough with everything that we're doing, and knowing that our customers are being heard when it comes to a lot of their complaints and suggestions or feedback. If they do need different services, again, we are here to serve them. That is our primary function as a public transportation agency. And we take that 100% seriously. And we ensure that we are following through on the planning process of equitable transportation anytime that happens. Our transportation planning team will launch into a research phase as soon as there's enough people requesting routes, and we do explain that thoroughly, the process to every individual that might benefit from additional service in one community to the next. So we constantly are receiving emails, we're constantly receiving messages through that contact form, and we do reach right back out to them and let them know, hey, if you have additional people that might benefit from this, please let them know to contact us. Even if it's just hi, I would also benefit from that too, because then we can start defending the decision to launch into a research phase and add additional service or routes in those communities. And that has successfully happened, I am pleased to say, over the last calendar year. And in turn, we have been able to publicize that in those communities and show that commitment to follow through and really build trust and rapport in a whole brand new way that Arrowhead Transit is really adapting to. And we're really excited to continue serving the communities in this way.
Gotcha. Great. And I guess, last couple of questions. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about funding and being a smaller agency and dealing with funding. I know, COVID, everything got a little bit of wacky as far as, funding goes. But can you talk a little bit about how you continue to advocate at the state level for funding and kind of building that argument to keep resources coming in because of the services you provide to the community?
So with our funding is every year, Brandon, who is the transit director, and myself, Brandon more on the transit side, more me on the volunteer, we do a Washington fly-in and we go advocate what the importance is for funding for transit, because not only there are so many things, it's like our buses are increasing, there's so many capital projects, and the local match is going back. Before, during COVID, it was at a standstill, now it's going back. So in order to grow as a transit public company, we are going to need more funding. So we do go out there and we advocate for it. Brandon is very good at creating the budgets for Arrowhead Transit, and um, our process here is like of keeping on budget. We try very hard to do that, but that is what we do every year. Brandon's out there talking to the community. We have meetings with our funding sources on a quarterly basis. And then not only is it that we're meeting with our funding sources, we also meeting with other transit agencies as a group and talking to them and coming together. It's like, what is going on with this transit agency in Minnesota? What's going on with us? And we're all like kind of a little tight little community. We all stick together and talk about our issues and we move forward. And then come Washington, September time, we head to Washington and then we go and say, hey, this is why you want public transit, because not everybody can drive a car and not everybody has friends or family that can get them from point A to point B. So, and especially like Dominick touched base on those rural areas. I mean, we wish that we could help every single individual, and in the future, maybe there's a different way of doing things, using volunteers, getting them into the cities. You just never know. But if we don't talk about it, it will never happen. So it's got to start someplace. And what better place is start with your other transit agencies, what they're doing, what's working for them, where are they seeing the increases in prices, what can we do, get together, talk to our funding sources, our partners, and then go out to Washington and advocate and stress how important transportation is. It is needed everywhere, not only buses, bicycles, everything, trains, planes, everything.
Right. Yeah. So with kind of positive momentum moving forward for you guys, can you talk a little bit about maybe kind of short-term, long-term goals for Arrowhead Transit?
Yeah, definitely. Arrowhead Transit just seeks to continue to provide equitable transportation solutions for those in rural Minnesota. We seek to build more of that first mile, last mile connection, like you had just mentioned, and we're constantly trying to figure out how we can do that in a economic way that's going to make sense for us as the transportation provider and sense for the commuter. So we're looking at smaller vehicles that can be branded with the Arrowhead Transit logo to be furnished with union drivers and send them out into those regions to connect people with our busing systems. That's something we're looking at. In one of our communities, Grand Marais, very tip of Minnesota, if you're looking at it on the very right side, on Lake Superior, they do not have a CDL permit testing facility up there. So we are struggling for CDL permit drivers. We do the CDL actual state test in-house, but the permitting test, you have to drive to Duluth, which is just over 2 hours away. We do provide free trips on our buses for that, but sometimes, I mean, if you fail, you have to wait 24 hours to go back and do it again, and that is a long journey. So we are looking at potentially purchasing different vehicles that don't necessarily require the CDL up there in that community. So we're constantly seeking different opportunities to be a little bit more flexible and meet the ever-growing demand for clean, green, renewable public transportation in our communities. I think we've seen a lot of transition with the newer generation coming in, looking for that equitable transportation solution that they were used to in their collegiate years in the urban centers that they lived in. And we always say up here on the second floor at headquarters that if it was good enough for the Twin Cities Metro, why is it not good enough for us up here on the Iron Range? And we are dedicated to ensuring that that equitable access is replicated in a way that makes sense for our populations in the 10 counties that we serve.
Great. Dominick, Colette, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.